Hi friends, today we are going to dive into the amazing stories of victories and failures of four of the greatest Soviet judokas. These athletes not only became judo legends, but also made a huge contribution to the development of the sport on the international stage. Their careers are a combination of incredible fortitude, hard training, and a real passion for their work. They have achieved dizzying successes, faced serious challenges, and overcome obstacles that would break anyone. In this video, I will explain how their triumphs and defeats made them legends, inspiring new generations of judoka. Let's get started. Champions are not born, champions become champions. It is always a long and hard work, overcoming oneself and the capabilities of one's body. And when for some people this process becomes a real test, others follow the sporting path easily and as if playing. This is how Vladimir Nevzorov, the great Soviet judoka, whose technique was admired by battered Japanese coaches, came to great victories. Vladimir Nevzorov was born on October 5, 1952 in the city of Maykop, Adygea Autonomous Region. From early childhood, the boy grew up to be a very active child who loved sports. He was engaged in chess, tennis, and soccer. Together with friends, liked to run. Nevzorov got into wrestling by accident. Once, as a joke, he decided to wrestle with a friend and in a flash was on the floor. A leader by nature, which was Vladimir, this state of affairs hurt and at the same time spurred, wanted to become better and stronger. Well, I flipped a coin to go to boxing or to wrestling. It was wrestling. I came, we were all lined up, 200 people in a row. The coach, a young Adygene guy, selected 80 guys and told the rest, when you grow up, come back then. And we were like, no way, and we stayed, recalled Vladimir Nevzorov. This is how Nevzorov met his first and the main coach in his life, Yakub Koblev. This young mentor brought up a whole era of judo masters. In Vladimir's sports career, Yakub was not just a teacher, but also a close person who led the young man to great victories in both judo and sambo. In 1970, Nevzorov won the Youth Championship of the Soviet Union in Sambo. In 1971, he won the only gold medal for the Soviet Union at the Junior European Judo Championship. At the adult level, Vladimir won his first Sambo competition at the National Championship in Moscow. It was there that he first defeated Vladimir Nevzorov, whose confrontation with him would adorn both Soviet and world judo for many years to come. The initial period of his great sports career, Nevzorov was torn between two types of wrestling, sambo and judo. Both there and there he showed good results, won at international tournaments. But following the proverb chase to birds, you will never catch one, Vladimir decided to focus on one thing and chose judo. Perhaps the reason was the fact that unlike sambo, Japanese martial arts is an Olympic sport where there is a chance to win a medal at the main start of the quadrennium. In 1973, Nevzorov took part in the World Championship, where he did not achieve any special results. The athlete himself claimed that he was sued. By 1975, Vladimir was already completely different. Having won 2 golds at the European Championships, individual and team, he was confidently approaching the World Championships in Vienna. In Austria, Nevzorov confidently reached the semi-finals, where his opponent was Japanese Kuramoto, one of the favorites of the tournament. Vladimir had been preparing for this meeting, studying his opponent's techniques and holds, so he knew his crowning trick, the hold. The Soviet athlete swiftly conducted a painful hold and won. In the final, Nevzorov was waiting for his compatriot, the same Vladimir Nevzorov, whom Vladimir had already defeated, but in a different kind of sambo. Vladimir Nevzorov was already in good shape for the World Championship, but I knew one of his weaknesses: he did bad twines. Nowadays they put you on twines from childhood, but we started to do them at the age of 19. It was easy for me to do a catch with him because he didn't do the twine. Well, that was the end of it, Nevzorov said. Thus, for the first time in the history of the sport, a representative of the Soviet Union, Vladimir Nevzorov, climbed the first step of the podium at the World Championships. It would seem that the winner of the World Championship should automatically qualify for the Olympics. But in the Soviet national team, where 2 equally strong athletes claimed 1 place in the category up to 70 kilograms, everything was not so unambiguous. Nevzorov and Nevzorov were preparing hard for the Soviet Union Championship, where the fate of a ticket to the games was decided. They, being in one team, separated with personal coaches in different halls, gave maximum effort and tuned into the fight as if it were the last one. The tension was enormous, and at the national championship in the decisive meeting, two judokas in a hard fight determined who will go to Canada. Nevzorov won, and Nevzorov was forced to change category to go to Montreal. There he was not left without an award and lost only in the final to a Japanese, thus winning silver. who were the favorites in the weight category up to 70 kilograms. Of course, the representatives of the Soviet Union and Japan. And all predictions came true, as in the final these two athletes met on the tatami, Vladimir Nevzorov and Koji Kuramoto. When I was told that I had to prepare for 10-15 opponents, I answered that I would prepare for 2, Valery Dvoinikov and Kuramoto. Valery was not my opponent at the Olympics, as he moved to a heavier weight category, so the only goal was the Japanese. Do you know how we prepared? We had 12 people who thoroughly studied Kuramoto's technique, and I practiced bouts with them. 4 times a week, 12 men, 3-hour training sessions. Everything was practiced to the point of automatism, recalled Vladimir Nevzorov. And such persistent training helped Vladimir to win. The Soviet triumph was not hindered neither by a cruel, painful hold performed by the Japanese, nor by a controversial moment of refereeing, which was emphasized even by his rival, the coach of the Japanese national team Isao Kano, telling in one of the interviews that the Soviet judoka was evaluated by the front foot with the assessment was a Ari, although it was worthy of the highest assessment upon. After the Games, Nevzorov, now as an Olympic champion, won the 1977 European Championships in individual and team competition, and in 1978 he won silver at the Continental Championships. And perhaps many people were expecting a repeat of his success at the home games, but Vladimir's old injuries were making themselves felt, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to continue to take to the tatami. Having finished his sporting career, Nevzorov did not leave his native judo, and at the moment he is a member of the Presidium of the Russian Judo Federation. Shota Chochishvili, an outstanding Soviet judoka who represented the greatness of Soviet sport on the international arena, multiple medalist at World and European Championships, and the first Soviet athlete to become an Olympic judo champion. Shota Chochishvili was born on July 10, 1950 in the city of Gori, Georgian Soviet Republic. Since childhood, the guy was interested in the Georgian national wrestling judoba, and as he himself said, who owns judoba, he is 90% already a judoka. In the 7th grade he switched his attention to sambo and judo as instructed by his coach. The athlete gave all of himself to his favorite occupation, giving his best in training, which, in the end, affected his athletic achievements and made Shota Chochishvili one of the most famous Soviet wrestlers in the world. But success caught up with Shota quite by accident, as there was no main leader in the weight of 93 kilograms for the 1972 Olympics, held in Munich. Shota Chochishvili was chosen on the recommendation of the head coach of the Soviet Union national sambo team Stanislav Ivanov, despite the fact that at the Soviet Union Sambo Championship this year, Shota was only 5th. Competing at the Olympic Games, Chochishvili sensationally defeated the clear favorite, 2-time world champion in 1969 and 1971, Japanese Fumio Sasahara, already at the beginning of the tournament grid. Many experts were sure that the gold medal of this Olympics in the weight category up to 93 kilograms would go to the Japanese, but Chochishvili first made a waza-ari throw, and a minute before the end of the bout he put the Japanese down with a clean throw on ippon. Chochishvili's individual technique, the foundations of which he laid as a child practicing national wrestling judoba, allowed him to defeat his opponents at this tournament, who were not familiar with its specifics. So he defeated athletes from the Federal Republic of Germany, Italy, and the United States. And in the final bout, Shota met with judoka from Great Britain David Starbrook, to whom he lost in the preliminary bouts, but according to the old rules had the right to go to the final. After a hard fight in the final in extra time, the victory, according to the judges, was given to Chochishvili. So Shota sensationally wins the Olympic gold and inscribes his name in history, becoming the first Olympic judo champion of the Soviet Union. From 1973 to 1976, Shota Chochishvili won silver at the European Championships 4 times in a row and also became a bronze medalist at the 1975 World Championships. At the 1976 Olympics, Shota competed in the Absolute Championship, where he won the bronze medal, winning the bout against French judoka Jean-Luc Rouge. After the Games, after wrestling for a couple more years and winning another bronze medal at the 1977 World Championships, Chochishvili decided to hang up his kimono and end his competitive career. And, after his career ended, he switched to coaching, where he worked with the Soviet Union national team. It is also worth mentioning that in 1989 Chochishvili signed a contract with a Japanese pro wrestling company and performed at a show in Japan, where he defeated one of the legendary Japanese wrestlers, Antonio Inoki. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Shota Chochishvili took the post of vice president of the Georgian Olympic Committee and the Judo Federation of Georgia, which allowed him to develop his favorite sport further, as well as to help young athletes to strive for the heights of judo. Unfortunately, Shota Chochishvili died on August 27, 2009, at the 59th year of his life. For most athletes, Olympic gold is the main achievement of their sporting career, the crowning achievement of all their work. Many in their brightest dreams see themselves climbing the first step of the podium, the enthusiastic stands applauding, and the 5-ring symbol reflected in the glare on the flagpole. But it happens that even this is not enough to feel that you are really not one of many champions, but practically the only and unique one who has made a special significant contribution to the cause of a lifetime. In this case, the ego can only be consoled by the fact that the athlete becomes the face of his sport. He is associated with this or that sport, and his name becomes a noun or some element or technique is called by him. And in today's video we will talk about just such a man who entered the history of judo not only with great victories, but also with a unique technique, named in his honor, Shota Khabareli. Shota Khabareli was born on December 26, 1958 in Zhilivesvari, Kareli District, Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic. Like many children in Georgia, little Shota practiced the national wrestling Chidauba. This kind of martial arts has certain similarities with judo, which in many ways predetermines the path to Olympus of those who make certain successes. That is exactly what happened to Khabareli when he saw his compatriot Shota Chochishvili win the 1972 Munich Olympics. Khabareli was 19 years old when he started practicing judo. The first great results came 2 years later, when the young man went to the 1979 European Championships, where he took second place. But even that didn't guarantee Shota's entry to the home Olympics. Firstly, the unique style of wrestling, inherent in many Georgians and borrowed from the national martial art, was especially evident in Khabareli's fighting technique. For this his style was even called anti-judo. Secondly, in the Soviet national team Shota had the strongest competitor, Alexei Volosov, and only their face-to-face meeting could decide which of the two athletes would take part in the main start of the quadrennium. Psychological stability and the very special manner of fighting were the two components of the victory that opened the way to the Olympic podium for the Georgian athlete. The Japanese boycott of the 1980 Moscow Games weakened the competition. However, in the category up to 78 kilograms, where Khabareli was competing, the competition was still enormous. Frenchman Bernard Chulian, German Harald Heinck, Bulgarian Georgy Petrov, all of them were contenders for gold. Everyone knows that homestands are exhilarating, but not so often it is said that they also add nervousness, because it is especially unpleasant to lose in front of your spectators. And when teammates are eliminated from the tournament one by one, the responsibility begins to press harder. But the poor performance of his colleagues could not knock Khabareli out of the rut. You fight at home, everyone hopes for you. Kolya performed strongly then and won brilliantly. And I won the first meeting I had with this Heinck, to whom I lost at the European Championships because of the refereeing. After that final we met for more times, and I won all the bouts. At the Olympics I also won, and I did well in all the other fights. In the final I thought I would meet Frenchman Bernard Chulian. He fought with Freire from Cuba to reach the final and unexpectedly lost to him, recalled Shota Khabareli. In the final, Khabareli was saved by Chidauba techniques that put the Cuban in a stupor. His opponent simply did not know what to do with them, and even providing worthy resistance, Ferrero could not match the Soviet athlete. That's how Shota Khabareli became Olympic champion. Everyone has his own style, and so it is with us. There was and is our Georgian style, with which I probably stood out more than others. It was thanks to it that I became an Olympic champion, and I am pleased that later it was called Khabareli hold. It was the technique I used to beat my opponents. It was a great honor for me when the International Judo Federation officially named this move after me, said Shota. He didn't have to rest on his laurels for long. A year after the Olympics, Khabareli took the third place at the European Championships. In 1982, he became a silver medalist at the Continental Championship, and in 1983, Shota wins 2 bronze medals at the European Championships and at the World Championships. The boycott of the 1984 Olympics by the Soviet Union affected many athletes. Some of the strongest athletes of that time were so discouraged by such a decision that they had no desire to continue their sports careers. It is unlikely that this was the determining factor, but it certainly played a role, and Khabareli also decided to hang up his kimono, switching to coaching. Shota Khabareli led the Georgian national judo team for 19 years. It was during his coaching work that one of the best periods of development of this kind of martial arts in Georgia took place. Later on, Khabareli got involved in politics, in particular in the development of sports in his native country. The hero of today's video, Sergey Novikov, is a famous and outstanding Soviet athlete, the 1976 Olympic champion in judo, as well as a multiple winner and medalist of various other international and national tournaments in judo and sambo. During his athletic career, foreign newspapers wrote rapturously about him, calling Novikov a Russian miracle. In his judo you could see everything that we love this fight for. Perfect technical skill, lightning fast, fantastic throws, cold-blooded calculation. And thanks to all this, Sergey Novikov was unequivocally recognized by everyone as the strongest and most technical judoka. Sergey Novikov was born on December 15, 1949 in Moscow. The boy began practicing sambo at the age of 14 in the city of Kiev, where the family moved after the retirement of Sergey's father, an officer in the armed forces. He came to the section to the honored coach of the Soviet Union, Yaroslav Ivanovich Voloshyuk. Then once Yaroslav Ivanovich recalled that he is a strong guy, I saw at once. Dance build, height 185. This is at the age of 14, but he was somehow shy or something. However, I soon realized that the first impression was deceptive. What I took for shyness, it turned out to be purely external restraint, behind which, however, lurked and purposefulness and great reaction and courage. Already in 3 months of training, 15-year-old Sergey became the champion of the Ukhrsovet Dynamo among young men. The clever teacher, realizing what valuable material he got in his hands, did not hurry to mold the teenager into a sportsman for himself. He realized that under these long legs, under the natural sharpness of his pupil, more suitable throws with his feet, and he also realized that in heavyweight categories there will be no success without power, athleticism. A proven technique must be based on high-strength indicators. Therefore, Novikov carried a lot of iron. In 1971, the Spartakiad of the Peoples of the Soviet Union in sambo is held in Moscow. In the weight category up to 100 kilograms confidently goes to the final young representative of the Ukrainian national team, Sergey Novikov. And in the final, the Kiev resident is waiting for the master of sports of international class, Muscovite Vladimir Nevzorov, a wrestler very experienced, one can say, in a sporting tricky. And here in the first 2-minute segment, Nevzorov, with his cunning undercut, time after time clawing Sergey's leg, conducts a throw and gets 2 points. And Novikov, as if he didn't even notice that the gold medal of the Spartakiad was floating away. Calmly, as in training, he moves around the mat, working with his hands, trying to put his opponent off balance. It was the last minute, and then at some point their steps, the amplitude of the oscillations of their bodies combined. Feeling it, Novikov, as if on wings, flew into the back foot and Nevzorov fell on his back. A full-fledged throw, and that's where the fight ends. But the most amazing thing is that the next day the scenario of the final bout was repeated, one and the same. But now it was the first place of the Soviet championship. The only difference was that Novikov won back not with a rear naked choke, but with a front naked choke. And also at the end of the bout, then many wrestling experts noted the athlete's talent, which consisted, firstly, in a unique sense of rhythm, and secondly, in Olympic cold-bloodedness, which was expressed in the ability to wait to work for sure. There are such moments in life which, perhaps, even involuntarily are remembered forever and divide life into before and after. The decisive fight of the Olympic Games in Montreal in July 1976 is just one of such events. Here is how Sergey Novikov himself recalls it. The final divided my whole life into what came before and what came after. Everything that came before was just a path to victory. The 1975 world champion Sumio Endo of Japan was the favorite to win the games. It just so happened that we were drawn together in the first fight. It was my toughest fight at the Olympics. The Japanese couldn't throw me once, and I had 2 holds and won in the end. Then before reaching the final I had 3 more fights with Park Jong-kir, a giant from North Korea, who weighed over 165 kilograms at a height of 2 meters 10 centimeters. Strong Yugoslavian Kovacevic and Englishman Remfry. I had seen them all at previous tournaments and knew each one's wrestling very well. Unlike the West German Gunther Neureuther, whom I was to meet in the final, his manner, his strengths were almost unfamiliar to me. Maybe it was for the best, because the final bout ended at 44 seconds with my clean victory. Sixth sense helps Novikov to overcome giants, significantly superior to him in physical condition. We'll write about the Olympic champion Sergey Novikov in the late 70s of the last century. The newspaper Soviet Sport, journalists of the most prestigious Soviet sports publication, saw this judoka as an extra-class chess player on the tatami, looking for the exact order of moves in every fight. Novikov said, "When I go on the tatami, I try to assess my opponent's psychological state. I look into his eyes and try to read what he is experiencing at the moment. You can't miss a single detail." 4 years after winning Olympic gold in Montreal, Sergey Novikov will end his career. However, even in this 4-year period, he demonstrated a lot of bright fights, which are still not forgotten by true judo connoisseurs. Among the most striking fights of Sergey Novikov, already in the rank of Olympic champion, can also be attributed a meeting during the Spartakiad of the Peoples of the Soviet Union against the 3-time European judo champion 160 kilograms to meter giant Alexei Tyorin. Tyorin possessed such incredible physical power that he once tore the kimono on his opponent's back. And this was the mountain Novikov was to topple. Tyorin, feeling his superiority in weight and height, attacks quite straightforwardly. He tries from the left rack to make a catch under 2 legs. But Sergey, having bypassed the attacking leg of the opponent, deftly turns under his opponent, and 160 kilograms of solid muscles are already on the back of our hero. A moment more, and the opponent is defeated. The decision to end his sports career and start doing community service, which is closely related to sports, came to Sergey in 1980. After leaving big sports, he considered his main task to be the promotion of a healthy lifestyle and the spread of sports among young people. On April 16, 2021, Sergey Novikov died. He was a man who literally entered the world history of judo and sambo thanks to his right attitude to life and cultivation of qualities inherent in a real man, fighter, and just a man. It was he who showed his compatriots by example that the impossible is still possible. The significance of his victories had a huge contribution to the development and strengthening of the sports nation, the education of faith in the country and themselves in the majority of boys and girls who came to the sport and without fear to achieve the highest goals.